You've probably heard the phrase service with a smile at least once in your lifetime. Victoria housekeeping is anything but that. Lycaon is about as cool and composed as can be, and best girl Corin would probably turn you into shredded mozzarella out of fear if you just made one wrong move. And this girl? Well, I have a feeling Miss Ellen Jo over here wouldn't give you a smile. But that's okay, because at least by the end of this video, you'll be grinning from ear to ear knowing how easy she is to build and how strong she is as our first raid-up unit. As always, this Ellen build guide will teach you everything you need to know about how to play her, how to build her, and how to give her the best team possible. Without further ado, let's get this guide rolling. Ellen is a very simple character to play. She has an enhanced dash that can be triggered by holding or double tapping your dodge button. Once you're running around fast, you can tap the basic attack button to quickly perform a short scissor slash in front of Ellen, or hold the basic attack button to charge a longer slash. The swift scissor slash gives Ellen 1 stack of flash freeze, while the charged scissor slash deals slightly more damage and grants Ellen 3 stacks of flash freeze, which is the core mechanic of her kit. Flash freeze stacks are under her portrait and health bar, and each time Ellen lands a basic attack against an enemy, 1 charge will be consumed to turn her basic attack into ice damage instead of physical damage, and also grant it up to 100% more crit damage once you max out her core passive. Ellen's EX special attack will swipe her tail to hit the enemy twice and also generate 1 stack of flash freeze. If you have enough energy to cast your EX special attack again, you can immediately follow up into another EX special attack input to launch a huge sweeping attack in front of Ellen that deals massive ice damage and restores an additional flash freeze stack. Now you could probably see where this is going. The big damage loop when you don't have to dodge starts out with a long charge attack for flash freeze stacks, and then you basic attack chain with those 3 flash freeze stacks. Afterwards, you can seamlessly alternate between EX special attacks and the final hit of her basic attack chain until you're out of energy, because you'll notice that after her special attack, Ellen can immediately connect it into the final hit of her basic attack where she kicks her weapon. And of course, if you have it ready, you can put the cherry on top by casting your ultimate, which is yet another fat damage multiplier just like her EX special attack. When the enemy is not stunned and you need to be dodging attacks, always remember that perfect dodges reward Ellen by reducing the charge time of her next scissor attack to allow her to quickly build up flash freeze stacks. On top of this simple gameplay, what makes Ellen scale so well from the early game to the late game is her invulnerability, her passives, and the ice anomaly. Not only does Ellen gain 50% damage reduction and interruption resistance with her long charge attack out of her dash, but her EX special attacks also grant her brief invulnerability windows that give her another outlet to dodge attacks aside from the iframes at the start of her dash. If you want to talk about offense instead of defense, look no further than her additional ability and core passive. As long as one of her teammates is either an ice character or from the Victoria housekeeping faction, Ellen's additional ability will allow her to increase her ice damage by 3% every time she deals ice damage, stacking up to a maximum of 30%. Her core passive can literally give you a free 100% crit damage on her basic attacks and normal dash attacks at max level as well. Combine this with the fact that the frostbite effect of Ice Anomaly also makes enemies take increased crit damage, and you have a recipe for success. In the late game, having this much free crit damage from external sources makes her extremely straightforward to build because your min-max build is a lot more lenient compared to other characters. And speaking of builds, let's get into Ellen's disc drives. For those who don't know, Zenless Zone Zero is a game with 6 gear slots, meaning you generally have room for 1 4-set effect plus another 2-set effect as well. So for Ellen's best 4-set disc drive, we have the Ice Set Polar Metal. This 4-set is tailored towards Ellen's playstyle with huge bonuses to basic attacks and dash attacks, and it's most often paired with the 2-set Woodpecker Electro for an extra 8% crit rate on the side, but any 2-set that gives attack percent works as well, as long as it has good substats. When you farm Polar Metal, it will be in the same stage as the Anomaly set Freedom Blues, which is one of the most universal sets we have upon release, so Polar Metal is overall great for progression for any account that has Ellen. However, the 4-set Polar Metal values did get slightly nerfed since CBT3, and that paved way for the 4-set Woodpecker Electro with the 2-set Polar Metal to be competitive in damage. With proper dodging and spaced out EX special attacks, this set can even be a few percentage points higher in damage output compared to Polar Metal when maximizing the uptime on the 4-set stacks. I personally recommend the 4-set Polar Metal over the 4-set Woodpecker Electro simply for ease of gameplay, and because the 4-set Woodpecker Electro is paired with the defense set that doesn't have a lot of uses currently. As for stats on these disk drives, slots 1, 2, and 3 are always flat HP, attack, and defense respectively. Slot 4 will be where you will build crit rate or crit damage, slot 5 will be ice damage bonus, and slot 6 will be attack percent. Crit rate is generally better than crit damage in the 4 slot because most players aren't super optimized, and crit rate makes it extremely easy to build Ellen with all the free crit damage that she already gets from external sources, but there will be cases where crit damage is better for her DPS, such as having her signature W engine, which gives a huge boost to crit rate. Ice damage bonus and attack percent in the 5th and 6th slots are pretty self-explanatory when it comes to increasing your damage. Substat focus mirrors your main stat focus with crit rate and crit damage as the top priority, and then attack percent, flat pen, and flat attack as your other substats to target in that order. Because there are not many W engines in the game right now, this section should be brief. Ellen's signature W engine is light years ahead of any other option because 1. It gives up to 44% crit rate when adding in the crit rate from its main stat and passive, and 2. The lack of other options makes it extremely worth it to grab Ellen's W engine before going for additional copies of her. But if you can only afford one copy of Ellen and nothing else, then the best substitute options include the Battle Pass W engine, Cannon Rotor, or the A rank Starlight engine. Cannon Rotor is another crit rate main stat W engine and synergizes well with all the free crit damage that Ellen gets, but you do have to buy the Battle Pass for this one, so it's not a free to play option. Starlight engine does not grant crit rate but can be pulled by anyone through gacha. Its whole purpose is just to be a huge attack percent stat stick, especially if you are running Ellen with a character like Rina or Sokaku, who can allow Ellen to trigger assist attacks on demand for pretty much 100% uptime on the passive if you're also dodging correctly. Starlight engine and Cannon Rotor are about the same power level, so choose whichever one you'll have more dupes of. And if you're completely free to play and just need a starting weapon, any of the B rank W engines can be used on Ellen with about the same success among each other. They are noticeably worse than the A ranks that I just talked about, but that's usually not a problem since these will most likely just be replaced once you go farther down the road. Players concerned about the low base attack on B rank W engines even in the mid game can transition towards the craftable A rank Street Superstar later on, as it's not too far behind the likes of the BP weapon for example. The passive of this craftable adds more nuke potential to Ellen's ultimate after triggering some chain attacks. In a very general sense, there are two types of teams that you can play in Zenless Zone Zero. The first is your classic team that looks to build up days very fast to create a short DPS window for the main damage dealer to unleash a deadly combo when the enemy is stunned. The second archetype is a team that looks to use the unique attribute disorder mechanic that Zenless Zone Zero has and builds a dual element team where the characters from both elements can build up their respective attribute anomaly fast. Ellen falls into the former archetype where she fills the role of the main DPS that nukes the enemy while they're stunned. That means we're going to need a support character and a character dedicated to building days for the other two slots. The support role is extremely straightforward with Sokaku as the clear frontrunner for this slot. While Sokaku did get some changes between CBT3 and release, the synergy between the two haven't changed. First and most importantly, Sokaku is a slash ice type character which allows you to activate Ellen's additional ability that grants her a stacking 30% ice damage bonus. Other bonuses in Sokaku's kit include an attack buff to the character switching in from the reactive assist triggered by his hold special attack Fly the Flag, and also an ice damage buff to the team when consuming vortex stacks built up by his EX special attack or chain attacks. The last thing I want to mention before moving on to the third team slot is the benefits of having some vertical investment into Sokaku. If you get 4 more copies of Sokaku, he'll reduce the ice res of enemies by 10%, and if you happen to pull his signature A rank W engine Bashful Demon, he can give another attack percent buff to the team when using his EX special attack. Overall, this character is irreplaceable in Ellen teams. And for the final slot, the ideal character in this slot is a stun type character for days. Lycaon is the perfect character for this slot because he is also an ice type and a part of the Victoria housekeeping faction, so his additional ability that increases the stun damage multiplier will be in play. Lycaon also did get a change in the official release version that also put an Ice Res debuff in his core passive as well, further solidifying him as the best Daze unit to pair with Ellen. Coletta is a substitute for Lycaon and unfortunately will not have her additional ability activated in this specific team, but she still has respectable Daze buildup even when not paired with Ben, who is her ideal teammate. However, I know these two characters are both S-rank characters on the standard banner, so not everyone is guaranteed to have them. Although I had Lycaon in Closed Beta 2 and Closed Beta 3, I had neither Lycaon nor Coletta, so I ran Ambi, who is our free stun type character. Unfortunately, Ambi also misses out on her additional ability in this team like Coletta, but at least she can quickly contribute to some Daze buildup with a relatively fast and simple on-field combo with her EX special attack. Other solid substitutes in this slot include Rena for a small pen ratio increase with her core passive, or Grace because this character's anomaly buildup is absolutely ridiculous, even if her additional ability that increases shock damage isn't activated in this team. And last but not least, your recommended Bang Boos are Shark Boo, Butler, and Penguin Boo in that order, since all three play extremely well into the ideal mono ice team. If you don't have these Bang Boos, generalist support Bang Boos like Explore Boo, Avocado, Boo Resher, and Sumo Boo all work fine. Bang Boos don't really matter until you get into the much later stages of the game, so for now my advice is just to run whatever you have and focus on your three characters first. But with that, hopefully you guys enjoyed this Ellen guide, and most importantly, I hope this guide was helpful for building the perfect Ellen for your account. Definitely let me know if you want more ZZZ content on the main channel or the second channel down in the comments below. Other than that, it's the same as always. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.